Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The WBC champion Deontay Wilder has again dismissed his WBC mandatory challenger Dominic Breazeale, who he says wouldn't last 3 rounds with him. And I tend to agree with this, so I'll get to Wilder's comments and then a few thoughts. Because Breazeale's most recent performance against Carlos Negron certainly solidified a few thoughts for me, but more on that soon. But speaking to BoxingScene.com, on screen here, Wilder told them, "I really don't think nothing of Dominic Breazeale. I don't even rate him. He's an average fighter at best. I give him 1 to 3 rounds with me, but he don't last long." And further on in the story, they've got Breazeale being quoted. That's from December 22nd at his fight, where Wilder was in attendance. And after he knocked out Carlos Negron in the 9th round of their 10-round fight, really had to work for that win. He got up towards the ropes on the ring apron and basically was pointing and calling out Wilder, who stood up and sort of said, I'm ready for it, whatever. And Dominic Breazeale, he wants that fight. He's been waiting for more than a year now. He hasn't had any step-aside money. The WBC has been allowing Deontay Wilder to face the likes of Luis Ortiz, to face Tyson Fury. It hasn't called the fight yet. He is the mandatory challenger, but it hasn't ordered it happen yet. And now he's also not going to get a piece of step-aside money with the WBC, saying it will approve a rematch with Tyson Fury should they go that route. But, I'll get to that in a second because there's some interesting things with that too that I've been thinking about. But first to Dominic Breazeale with Deontay Wilder's statements. I wholeheartedly agree with Wilder here. On the strength of the Carlos Negron performance, where Dominic Breazeale, although he'd been out of the ring a year, he looked in good shape for Dominic Breazeale. Probably somewhere near his best shape in his entire career. He was in pretty decent condition. But it doesn't change the fact that Carlos Negron, who is slightly shorter than Dominic Breazeale, was able to effectively piece him up for most of the night. He was almost able to hit him at will with jabs, body shots, all manner of punches that he was able to get in. Dominic Breazeale, zero defense to speak of. Really, it was subpar in terms of the defensive front. Sure, Breazeale was looking to walk through Carlos Negron and take him out and make a statement, but it just didn't quite happen. He looked a bit sloppy and clumsy in there. It was only when he started to vary his punches up towards the end that he actually started to have more sustained success. He should have been working the body more to Carlos Negron. He should have not just been headhunting, should have been working that jab, setting up that right hand better. But ultimately what happened was he didn't do most of what he should have done. He was trying to walk Carlos Negron down, walk through him, take him out, and he made hard work of it in the end. And on the strength of that performance, I think Deontay Wilder and most of the rest of the top 10, maybe even the top 15, absolutely batter Dominic Breazeale. It will be open season on Dominic Breazeale, who is just too hittable. He cannot defend any punches. Basically, his defense is, weathering punches on his face or on his body. That is how he defends. He doesn't really have much of a defense to speak of. And someone like Deontay Wilder, who's got more significant power, way more significant power than Carlos Negron, he will land, maybe not in the first round, but certainly within the first few rounds, he will land something significant. We saw it with Izu Agono and Dominic Breazeale. We've seen it with Amir Mansour. We've seen it with Anthony Joshua. They were battering him for most of their fights. Dominic Breazeale's heart and determination got him through 2 of those fights, but in a way he was a bit lucky with the Mansour fight. Mansour was injured, bit his tongue, was swallowing blood, and Izu Agono got careless defensively, and Dominic Breazeale was able to take advantage and knock him out. So if Izu Agono had been a bit more defensively responsible, hadn't been so aggressive, hadn't have unloaded his tank in those first few rounds, he probably would have either cantered to a points win over Dominic Breazeale or potentially even knocked him out. He was really piecing him up. And Deontay Wilder is a better fighter than Mansour, is a better fighter than a somewhat unproven Izu Agono was back in February 2017 when Breazeale and Agono fought. it would be a bloodbath. Deontay Wilder would absolutely destroy Dominic Breazeale. Sure, Wilder would have to look out for something coming back at him, because obviously Dominic Breazeale punches hard, but I think you'd have to have Deontay Wilder as a 90-10 favourite, the 10% being the Hail Mary punch that could land and hurt Wilder. But I do think that Breazeale is going to take a battering. Wilder would put the hurt on him and get him out of there. But I guess then it comes to the question, will they ever fight? Dominic Breazeale is currently the mandatory challenger, and we just don't know where things are at. The WBC has said it will allow the rematch to occur. It will sanction that fight. It will make a ruling to a resolution to make sure that's all good. Dominic Breazeale, he will be dealt with in that resolution or that ruling or whatever they come out with. That could be an interim title. We'll have to see. But it makes me wonder, when is all this going to happen? Because Breazeale, as I mentioned before, he's been waiting a long time. He hasn't had any step-aside money as yet, and it's unlikely that he will, because the WBC will take care of the situation for the WBC champ, because right now Breazeale is this voice to the side, a bit of a thorn in Wilder's side, calling for his fight. It's fallen on deaf ears, and really he's just a backup option. Tyson Fury is talking about, well, maybe Deontay Wilder should go face someone else or face his mandatory. I think that's more of a negotiating tactic, but I don't think we're going to see any movement in terms of the rematch getting sort of negotiated to any degree until Anthony Joshua's next opponent is confirmed, most likely to be Dillian Whyte. Because at the moment, if you look at it, Anthony Joshua is somewhat of a negotiating pawn for the rematch, because Wilder and Fury can both say, well, if you don't want the fight or you don't want to give me what I want, I'll go face this other guy. But once that is taken out of the equation, because I don't believe either is really looking at Joshua seriously, given some of the statements, there's been some talk, but I'm not sort of buying into it. I think the rematch is the most likely option. But if it didn't happen on the off chance, and say the Joshua fight with either didn't happen either, then Deontay Wilder would be left facing Dominic Breazeale. And that's a situation where you go, okay, if they fought, what sort of business is that going to do? A fan's going to be interested in that one. And at the moment, you'd have to say that coming from the highs of 2018, where Wilder fought Luis Ortiz, and then a very controversial but very popular split decision draw. And I mean popular in terms of it was a big fight, not that this decision was popular, but people want to see that rematch. So it makes obvious sense to make it again. So coming back to a Dominic Breazeale fight where the interest would be lower, it would unlikely be on pay-per-view. I don't think I'd want to pay for that fight. You have to sort of say the prospect of that fight getting made seems slim. But there can't really be too much movement on the what next for Breazeale until there's some movement with, other pieces in the division. Then that being Wilder, Fury, Joshua, other dominoes to fall before he really knows what's going to happen. But I could see Dillian Whyte potentially facing Dominic Breazeale if an order is made that an interim title will be on the line, because Whyte has expressed interest in taking a fight with Dominic Breazeale, but it really depends what happens and when. As with boxing, timing is key, but also the money. So we'll have to see what happens when. But what do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.
If you want even more boxing content, come and join me on Patreon.
Every week on a Sunday, I drop a new video on something topical or thought-provoking from the heavyweight division, ranging from rankings, the business of boxing, the false economy of deluded fanboys, the twists and turns in the division, to assessments of fighters and their statements. I hope to see you there, and for more information go to patreon.com/boxing squared. The address is on screen now.